You have to believe the thing you're doing is meaningful. No one gets into a flow state doing something they think is trash, right? He said you have to have skills that apply. Also, you need to be doing the thing at a level where you're challenged. Sometimes it's paralyzing to see your whole list of stuff you have to do, right? Because it's maybe so much stuff you're never going to get it all done today. It also encourages multitasking because you sort of look at things, you're like, well, I could work on this and then kind of work on this a little bit, and then I have to write that email. You and I both know multitasking is not efficient.
Does music help you to find your flow? Because I think you want to talk about the role of music in helping you focus as well.
The social facilitation theory says is that there is a measurable productivity bump if you can see someone else working and you know that you can be seen working.
I just want to ask, in terms of like creating the conditions, how can I enter into a state of flow? In the sense that, what kind of conditions do I need to create?
Each morning, before you open your phone, before you get busy making breakfast or running to the bus, think of the one thing that's going to move your life forward. What is that one thing today that's going to move your life forward? And just make sure you do that. Because if you do that each day, it is astounding how your life changes.
Hello, and you're welcome back to the Insight Zone podcast. My name remains the same, Kenny Adeleke. And this is the podcast where we share insight that fosters growth and understanding. We want to share insight that would help you make your life better, improve your well-being, and make you be at the top of your game. If you haven't yet done so, I know a lot of people watch and listen to this podcast, but it's not showing in the subscribing numbers. And if you do follow us and listen to us on this podcast, please do follow us. Leave us a rating and a review. Let us know how we're doing. Give us feedback that can obviously make us improve this podcast, and let us know what you want us to talk about as well, because this show is all about making you guys better in such a way that you can also transform your society as well. And on today's episode, we are talking about something that I personally have struggled with, and it's the ability to be productive in a state of flow. Many times, even with social media and so many things, we find it so difficult to focus. And without the ability to focus, you're not going to be able to achieve some of the things you've set yourself to achieve. And joining me today is someone that has being at this field of trying to help people, millions of people, because that's the goal they're trying to achieve, to help people find their focus. And joining me today is Steve Puri. He's a 2 times senior executive at two motion picture film company. He's a tech entrepreneur. He has raised over 20 million in venture capital, and is also the CEO and the founder of the Sukha company, where their main aim is to help people find their flow and focus effortlessly. You're welcome to the show, Steve. It's so good to have you on the show today.
That is a wonderful introduction, and I hope this is one of the more engaging and actionable episodes. And, we're going to get into like, how do you do the things in your life that are meaningful and do them in such a way that you get, you feel uplifted.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. And, for the listeners listening out there, people don't know what flow really means. What does it mean to be in a state of flow?
Okay, so a great place to start. I know that flow states have become very popular in the sort of the zeitgeist, the consciousness, but there are some people listening who are flow masters who know how to do that, and there are others who maybe have heard of it and want to know. So let's talk about that. There was a Hungarian-American psychologist, this guy Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and he had a thesis. He said, if you talk to high performers in different disciplines, athletes, artists, scientists, inventors, and you talk to them about the concentrated states they go into when they do the thing that makes them famous, they talk about it in very similar ways, even though the thing can be very different. So he's like, what's up with that? I want to learn about that, right? So he interviewed, he did the research, the whole thing. And at the end of it, he wrote a book called Flow. It is the seminal work on this. It is where we get the term flow state. And he said the greatest thing. He said, I chose this word flow because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found. We are all on the river, paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you, it magnifies your efforts. You go further and faster. And he said, that is what these high performers have figured out how to do and how to do repeatably. And it's a fascinating book. Obviously, since that time, a number of people have extended his research and just built upon different parts of it. You know, how does music affect it? What's the neuroscience? How does distractions work? So that's where we get this concept. And basically what Mihaly said, he said, this state of being in flow, you usually lose track of time. You're not staring at the clock. Distractions fall away. You're not thinking about, let me run downstairs to the fridge and grab a sandwich. You're not checking your email. He said you do your best work faster than you think possible. And at the end, you can feel uplifted, like a sense of joy, as opposed to a sense of depletion, like, oh, I need a nap. That was so hard, right? And I'll tell you, I did not know the term flow state the first time I experienced that. I live in Austin, Texas, sort of the middle of the country. And I was going the next day. I was going to San Francisco to meet with my team. And we had a meeting the next day. I wanted to show them this idea I had for a feature. So I thought, oh, on the flight, I'll kind of mock it up in Figma, my own version of it. Get on the flight. Alaska runs that nonstop. And the captain says, hey, sorry, kids, the Wi-Fi's out. Okay, fine. Like, see you in San Francisco. So we take off. I start working. Like 15 minutes later, we start descending. And I thought, oh, we're in Dallas. Like something bad happened to the plane. We're doing an emergency landing, and they're going to tell us when we're on the ground, an engine fell off, whatever's wrong. And I looked down, and over 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. I had no sense of time. And my designs were done, and I really liked them. So it was weird for me because I don't know if you've ever done this, Kenny, but I was prepared to, get to San Francisco, get in the Uber, grab a sandwich in the lobby, go up to the hotel room, try and finish the designs for the next morning. But in reality, I was done. In the Uber, I called a friend of mine and said, hey, man, I have a free night in SF. Do you want to have dinner? And it was really nice to feel like ahead of my day instead of like behind my day,
Sure.
So I later learned that was a flow state. And it's really kind of cool. And I wish someone had told me about this when I was in college. It would have changed my college years, Yeah, it's super fun. And it's something that's accessible. I mean, a lot of guys between Kel Newports and Near and, Stephen Kotler have talked about different aspects of how to do this sort of concentrated deep work. Right. And we're lucky to benefit from everything, that they've written. And this episode, I know we'll talk about some high level stuff of like, how does this work? But also some very actionable things like, how can you try this for yourself?
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
I absolutely love it because I love the way you describe flow because you talk about it's like a river. A river is constantly flowing, right?
Right.
And that's where once you find yourself in that state, you're flowing and you just focus on that task. And at the end of it, you're not feeling tired. And I think, does that mean there's a difference between being productive, or there's a difference between productivity and flow, right?
Yes. And here's the thing is there is so much pressure these days to be productive, to be focused, to block, right. It's like all these sort of things, right? But I think there's a first question to ask, or a more fundamental question to ask, which is why? Like it's presupposed that it's like, oh, we should all work really hard and do all these things and, learn how to focus and be flow masters. Why? And I know for me, why I spend so much time, sharing knowledge about this is I know my why. I believe that all of us have something great inside us. And the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not? A lot of people die without ever realizing the great thing they have inside, And that could be opening an amazing restaurant, writing a great novel, making a movie, starting a company, writing an app. Like there's so many things that might be your greatness. But if you don't believe that there's something great inside you to get out, then who cares? Why work hard? Why focus? Why learn about productivity, right?
Sure.
So for me, that's the why. Is I think it is a crime if you know what great thing you have inside that you don't get it out in your lifetime, that you go to your grave with that still inside, you know?
That's totally true. I had someone say something, and it's something that has stuck with me for quite a while. He said the richest place in the world is not um the Abu Dhabis of this world. The richest place in this world is the cemetery, because a lot of potentials and dreams have died over there.
Yes, that is a great quote.
And that's so interesting, because so let's now look at this. For me to be in flow, because I was just thinking about it, that if I need to be in flow, does it need to be something I enjoy doing in the first place?
Okay,
Because
so let's talk about that. That's a very good question. So when Mihai wrote, here are kind of the characteristics. You get lost in time, you do great work, it's fast, you feel good, blah, blah. He said there are some conditions that have to be true across all these people that he talked to, from sports, athletes to artists to, scientists. He said, you have to believe the thing you're doing is meaningful. No one gets into a flow state doing something they think is trash, right? He said, you have to have skills that apply. There's a joke about Michael Jordan said he described his flow state as being in the zone. And Mihai says lots of the people I interviewed have their own name for what this is, with Einstein and his thought experiments, and Michael Jordan being there. But Michael Jordan said, when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball, which is a great way to say all the distractions fall away.
right.
The only thing that really matters is I control this ball. And when you think about, Picasso, painting and sculpting and things like that, you realize that Michael Jordan painting is not going to get into flow. He's going to be frustrated, right?
Right.
Cops trying to play basketball.
Probably painting basketball or something.
Exactly, right. So you have to have skills that apply. And Mihai said also, you need to be doing the thing at a level where you're challenged. So if it were Michael Jordan playing a game at his kid's high school for exhibition, like he's not going to be in flow, right?
Right.
And you can think about what that means, because if you're trying to do something where you have to stretch and grow, that is when, the world falls away and you really get deep in. It's like the Matrix, where you sort of see the bullets in slow motion. And it's interesting, the way Mihai talks about this, because he says, it seems you also need to have feedback. A lot of the people that he spoke to said, you can't just do something like pouring energy into a vacuum and not know how you're doing.
Right.
It really helps that, for Michael Jordan, like he can see the scoreboard, or Picasso can stand back and look at Guernica and say, like, is this starting to capture the horrors of war, this huge canvas, And that sense of a feedback loop really helps you stay in flow, because what you're doing is creating an effect. There is an effect to your actions. So these are some of the conditions that help. Back to you.
Nice. And I really resonate with what you talk about, the feedback, meaning when you take an action, there's a response, and you need to make adjustments as well, just to make sure that you get into that state of productive flow. And it's just like, how will I describe it now? I did mechanical engineering, and we have something called like time of fluid. And so there's a constant state whereby the fluid is going, and I really resonate with it. And it's like a dance between focus and freedom. That's what I would describe it as. And I remember reading one quote from Mihaly. He said something really powerful, which I'm just going to read here.
Let's hear it.
He said, the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limit in a
Exactly.
voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile.
It is so true. So let me ask you some questions, because
Right.
we've been talking on a very high level about the abstraction of like focus versus distraction, right? Let me ask you some very concrete questions.
Okay.
When you are trying to focus, like suppose you have something to do,
Right.
what are the distractions that pull you out?
There's a lot.
Start at the top.
Number one, social media. That's one.
And does that get you on your laptop or desktop or on your phone?
On my phone.
Okay, so your phone. So right here. Problem.
Yeah, it's a problem. Yeah. Number two is when I have so much to do and I end up doing nothing.
Right? It's almost paralyzing to have too much to do, right?
Yes. I've been in that state before. And I think those would be like the two major reasons I would think about why.
I think that's fantastic. So let me ask you a question. On the first one, your phone.
Yeah.
You and I both know that every sound, every vibration, every image is designed and A/B tested billions of times to make sure it is the most addictive it can be, right? We know that. They are engineered to be dopamine little factories for you, right?
Yep.
Okay. So here's a strange thing. You have something you want to do with your life, right? So do I.
Right.
We live in a world where some of the most valuable companies, like trillion-dollar companies, their business model is steal your life. Period. Full stop. That is their whole business. And 10 years ago, when like Mark Zuckerberg would be called to Congress and, have to testify at something, he would pull this whole aw shucks thing. He's like, oh, Senator, Facebook's just for grandmothers to see videos of their grandkids, like that thing. And that's over. Like Elon, Evan, they are very clear. If you listen to the shareholder calls, they're like, we are paying top dollar to the best engineers, designers, behavioral economists on earth to develop the user interface to steal people's lives as much as possible, which we call shareholder value. And next quarter, we're going to deploy these new techniques to steal more people's lives to create more shareholder value. And they don't care anymore. They're like, straight up, that's what we do. It is as if Mark Zuckerberg called you up and says, hey, Kenny, can I have your life? Because I'm going to sell it to these advertisers and I'll keep the money. But I will give you some dancing cat videos. Is that cool?
Right. Good.
Can I trade your life for some cat videos? It sounds ridiculous, right?
Yep.
It is exactly the world we live in. So for you to say, hey, Steven, you know what? I really want to do something with my life. You have to acknowledge you live in a world where, like you said, this phone is beautifully designed to make sure that you do not.
It is.
So you know that. Now let me ask you this. Suppose I was sitting next to you and you started working. 9 a.m., you have a couple things you want to do and you're working on them. And you reach over for your phone. And I said to you, Kenny, like, is your phone helping you? Would you still reach for your phone?
No, I won't.
Because that's all you need. You need that little reminder saying, hey, man, who do you want to be? Do you want to be like the loser, or do you want to be someone who like gets their stuff done, right?
Right.
You just need that little help. I'll tell you something. I realized that about myself because my phone, just like you, bad one. And I found I usually reached for my phone when I was frustrated. Like if I was writing a blog post for a company blog, and I would read it, I'm half done, and I didn't know it's not really good, I would get frustrated. And without thinking, my hand would just reach for my phone. It'd be like, oh, let's just check WhatsApp and see, who's messaged, right? Or if I'm coding something and the build has failed a couple times and I'm trying to figure out what is wrong, in that frustration, I won't even think about it. My hand will just pick on my phone and be like, let's just take a minute and just check my email or, and it's never a minute. You're never checking your email for 1 minute. So
True.
here's something we did. The Sukha company, it's a website that helps people get into flow, right?
Yeah.
When you hit play and, the focused music begins and stuff like that, a QR code pops up. You can tap with your phone, put your phone down. If you pick up your phone while you're working, the smart assistant in your laptop says, hey, Kenny, is your phone helping you? And then you just get that one moment to choose. And if you say, you know what, I want to waste my time, you can do it. You can do it. But you get that little friendly tap on the shoulder that goes, hey, man, like, who do you want to be? And I think that's really important in a world where there are too many forces saying like, hey, man, just waste your life because it benefits our corporation,
Yeah, right.
So anyway, going back to distraction, right? So you said, number one, phone. I'm totally with you. And by the way, I speak to hundreds, if not thousands of people a year who are all looking for understanding about how to focus. Phone is by far number one, Kenny. So you and I are not alone. It is just, it's everybody, man.
I've been able to, put it on the play already. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is good. So the other thing you mentioned is sometimes it's paralyzing to see your whole list of stuff you have to do, right?
Yes.
Because it's maybe so much stuff you're never going to get it all done today, right?
Mm-hmm.
It also, and this is a tough one, it also encourages multitasking because you sort of look at things, you're like, well, I could work on this and then kind of work on this a little bit, then I have to write that email.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So you start multitasking, and you and I both know multitasking is not efficient because you're basically just monotasking with context switching. So you're kind of like jumping around. Your brain is trying to remember where you were with everything, right? It's way faster to just start and stop something, start and stop, and finish each thing as you go. So let me tell you something. This is a brain hack. This is going to sound stupid, but it works because I have the same thing you'd have. When I see my whole 17 things, it's paralyzing. I get less done. What we did in Sukha is when you hit play, we hide everything but the top 3. So as you're working, all you see are like these 3 things. And you know what? 3 is a reasonable number of things to get done.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yep, it is.
So this worked for me where I was like, I can't see all 17 things. It kills me. So we rolled it out to everyone on the platform. I said, I want to experiment with this. A couple people complained. They're like, oh, I want to see my whole list. I need to do that. Right? I will tell you this. After a week, we found that members of Sukha were 77% more likely to finish all 3 things when they could only see all 3 than when they could see the whole list, they would only finish 2. Same members, same kind of tasks, but it was just that thing. What you said, it's kind of paralyzing to look at this whole list while you're working and be like, oh my God, how am I going to get that done? So anyway, the things you said, absolutely, I'm with you. Very normal. Very normal. So I have another question for you. Do you listen to music while you work? Do you listen to any audio at all?
So I have tried it once, and I just listen to probably jazz or gospel or musical beats while I'm working.
Like what kind of music? Like just jazz or what?
Yeah,
or just
something like jazz. Yeah, jazz or like the movies that you might have produced, like the intros, right?
Yeah.
The intro sound, they have this how do I describe it? I won't call it funky. It's not funky, but it has a kind of way of trilling. Yes, triller sounds. And I just plug it in my headphones and I just listen, and they sort of like help me. And I think that even brings me to the next question I really wanted to ask you, which I think is what you want to talk about.
Well, let's go. Let's hear it.
Does music help you to find your flow? Because I think you want to talk about the role of music in helping you focus as well.
We're talk about music, and we're also going to talk about sound.
Oh, okay. So what about sound?
Here is a journey of which I learned, right? When we were creating Sukha, which is a website to help people get into flow, right? There is some fantastic research on what kinds of music help most people fall in. Now, here's the deal. Flow state, you've experienced it. I've experienced it. It is not something where you say, I'm in flow, and you're suddenly in a flow state, right?
Right.
It's something that takes, like, according to research, 15 to 23 minutes to get your brain in that zone. And if you get interrupted, it takes you another 15 or 23 to get back, right? So it means you kind of need to set a time and you're not going to be interrupted. Get rid of your distractions so you can stay in. Now, music has been shown to help people accelerate that. For most people, and this is not everyone, but for most people, music that is 60 to 90 beats per minute, certain key signatures, non-vocals, you're not singing along with Blackpink or whatever, and long rhythmic passages. That kind of lulls the brain into this sense of like focus where like your world becomes right here, right? Now, we all have a friend that listens to 90s gangster rap or, classical music or something else, jazz music, right? For most people, that's kind of it. So here's the funny thing. I used to work in film. I have a bunch of friends who are film composers. So when we created the platform, I said, hey guys, here's the research. Could you write me like 1,000 hours of music that is basically within these guardrails, right? Great. So we launched with that music organized in playlists. Like some are more like upbeat, some are down tempo, some are, lo-fi beats, that sort of thing. So you can choose like a playlist that has a certain kind of music. Interesting learning. So a buddy of mine, Julian, he does the audio for LucasArts for the Star Wars games, right? He calls me up one day. He's like, hey man, I just got back from Nepal. It was my kid's high school graduation gift. He did, I guess, a great job getting to college. And he asked him what he wanted for his, gift. And he said, I'd love to go to Nepal with you. So Julian said, we got back and I have something for you. One day when we were in Kathmandu, it poured rain, like this lush, beautiful, like heavy rain. And he said, it sounded so cool. I recorded 2 hours of it, not knowing what to do with it, but just, hey, I had my audio equipment with me, right? So he's like, I thought maybe you'd want this. Maybe we could put this, into Sukha and make a playlist. So we did. I mean, it's free. I was like, we'll try it. Sure. So we put up a playlist quietly called Himalayan Dream Rain. And we didn't announce it. We're just like, hey, there's this thing. See who discovers it. It became our third most popular playlist. And I thought this was fascinating because, so much attention is, with Brain FM and Endel and, all these like kind of like lo-fi beats, music for studying, music for working, music for focus, right? And I was like, Rain, dude. Rain is our third most popular playlist. So you know what I did?
What did you do?
I run the platform, so I know everyone's email. So I saw who's listening to this. I emailed some people, said, hey, do you mind like talking for 5 minutes? I'd love to understand why are you choosing Rain over all this like expensive music, scientifically designed music and stuff we have? And it was so interesting, Kenny. Because people told me stuff like, oh, when I was young, my grandmother raised me in Georgia. And I always associate the rain as when I'd be studying in the spring for finals. And it brings me back to my grandmother's house. Or people said they grew up on lakes or they had a lake house. It was always this thing of like the rain brought them back to a place and time when they used to focus. And I realized that was fascinating. There was this oral, trigger around that sound of rain. So what did we do? I was like, let's experiment. We put up playlists that were like surf in Cyprus. There's a lake in Canada that has these little birds around it, like a stream in Japan. Some of them were sort of popular. Some were, not really that much, right? Nothing was as cool as rain. And there's a woman in the platform. She's a blogger, a pretty well-known blogger. She reached out to me and she said, I see that you've been experimenting with these other sounds. She said, so let me tell you something. I had a baby during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I used to write my blog from this coffee shop in her hometown. Right. She said, I got this little like 2-year-old or whatever. I can't go to the coffee shop and hang out and be cool and, have my espresso there. She's like, any chance you could find a recording of a coffee shop? Because I'd love to pretend that that's my trigger. Hearing, the the espresso machine and the clattering of the cups, like that. So Michael, one of my partners, found a recording some dude in Austria made of his local coffee shop in Vienna, Austria, right? And we put it up there. We just called the playlist Cafe Vienne. Again, super popular. People are like, oh, it makes me feel like I'm in a coffee shop. So I say this because you asked the very popular question, which is like, well, what kind of music would help me? You know, you have to experiment a bit. But it's also a broader thing of what sound is going into my brain that helps me. And it may not be music. It may be nature. It could be the sound of a coffee shop. And that's one of the things we did in Sukha is we organize all these different playlists so you can experiment. And some people, do you know what pink noise is or brown noise or white noise? Anyway, there's some random noise generators that have different sort of balances, the frequencies. And it sounds crazy to me, but some people swear by it. So we have playlists that are just pink noise, brown noise, white noise. And it kind of is like, it's like this background noise as you work. And it does block stuff out. Like when you're listening to that, it's hard to hear sounds around you. Anyway, a long answer to your question, but yes, huge fan of the music and sound.
Oh, great. You said something really fascinating. It got me thinking.
What?
It got me thinking about how just someone hearing the sound of a coffee shop help them to, get what they need to get done because they've always probably worked in that coffee shop without any form of distraction, and they're able to do what they really want to do. And it just made me remember personally myself that a lot of times that I've actually worked in coffee shop as well. And I found out that whenever I go to the coffee shop or even the library, not the library in my own house, right, I sort of tend to churn out better work than when I am.
Why do you think that is?
I want you to tell me.
No.
The
best answers are inside you. I'm just here to help.
I know, right? I think it's because I think I find myself not distracted in that environment. And I like to be in the library. That is why. Yes. I like to be in the library. And I think I'm not distracted there. And probably that's the major reason. But I'm sure there's something on the line.
What do you associate with the library? When did you start? At what age did you start going to a library, and what was it like?
Probably when I was like 5 years old. Been going to the library. My dad took us to the library. As a young kid, I used to read a lot of books, and it's just a bit fun going to the library for me.
Me too.
So I guess probably I find it so fun whenever I'm in the library. And that just brings me to what I think James Clear said about habit, that you can't compete with someone that is doing it for fun.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
And so I think I enjoy it, the fun there. I've been going there since I was a child. And obviously, because I'm not distracted there.
Let's go a little bit deeper in this. Do you find that you focus better in an environment where you can see other people or you cannot see anyone?
That's a deep question. I think I find myself focusing in an environment where I do not see anyone, to be honest, because in the library, I just pick like a secluded area.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But I think that's state of seeing other people doing almost the same thing I want to do, trying to read a book or trying to get some work done, probably in the library. It brings me into a state of knowing that I'm in that environment, the environment has been primed for me to do something I want to do as well. Yeah.
So here's a funny thing is there's a behavioral theory called social facilitation theory. And this related concept called the Hawthorne effect after this study in Hawthorne, California, which is sometimes debated. And what the social facilitation theory says is that there is a measurable productivity bump if you can see someone else working and you know that you can be seen working. And some people attribute that to the sort of spirit of being on a team where we're all doing something together. Some people say it's like, well, when you're being watched, you don't screw around as much, because you know someone's watching you. There are a number of reasons that's brought up. But I'll tell you, here's something very personal in my life that was very true. So, I was a development executive at Sony, at DreamWorks, at Fox. And the course of doing that is reading a lot. Like, you are continually submitted scripts, books, treatments, pitches, video games, comic books, all this stuff. So you have to read a lot. Now, I could read alone in my condo in West Hollywood, right? However, across Sunset Boulevard from the Directors Guild, right by Fairfax, there is a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, this chain coffee shop. And this particular Coffee Bean was known as like a writer's clubhouse because you would walk in there, everyone's on their, little MacBooks writing away, trying to write the next screenplay or TV spec or something. And I'll tell you, it was not an incredibly social experience. Like, not everyone's in there is like table hopping. Oh, Kenny, what are you working on? Oh, hi. People aren't really talking, but there was an energy in that room. There was an energy of being around 30, 40 other people who are all sitting there trying to write the next great thing. And you had the full spectrum. Like, there's, the old guy in the corner who's written 3 studio movies this year. He's making $1 million a script. But he's been coming here since he was, a young writer. And it's his habit. And you have other people who just got off the bus and they're writing their first, project. And I would go there to read because it energized me to be around people who are all trying to create some sort of great entertainment. So I'm a big fan of that. And I'll tell you, with Sukha, our website, when we first launched this, it was very much a single player game. You went there, you pressed play, beautiful music starts, your smart assistant greets you, the timer and all stuff, right? But you were alone. It was like playing an old time, video game by yourself. It was not like playing a, multiplayer video game. And I had this thought. I speak to so many members who are all trying to do the same thing, focus, get their work done, have time for their lives. And they all know me, but none of them know each other. And there's so many of them out there that are doing this, right? So I thought, what if it's sort of like that coffee shop where people could, talk to each other? Maybe there's a group chat or something. You can share what you're working on or ask for help or this sort of thing, right? But I was also worried that maybe this would be very distracting. I asked a couple members. I was like, hey, who has a couple minutes to chat? I want to bounce this idea off you before we do anything, right? So there is one woman I spoke to who's still a member, and she made up my mind. And I pitched this thing. I said, would it be super cool if you had a sense of the other people in here who are all trying to do something great with their lives? Or would that be distracting and terrible? And she looked at me and she said, Steven, listen, I can go to the Nike store. I can buy a pair of shoes. They will sell me a left shoe and a right shoe. I put them on my feet and run. It works fine. But there is a reason 100 million people belong to the Nike Run Club. Because when you run together, you run further and faster. And you're more accountable. And the days that, you suck, you don't have any motivation, your friends come by and they're like, come on, Kenny, let's do this. And you lace up and you go. And the days that one of your friends sucks and you go help him or her out and you're like, let's do this, it feels even better. She's like, you should totally do this.
So it's a right? Yes.
And we did it. In Sukha, we put on the left side a little like chat panel so you can talk to people. It's my favorite thing in the entire platform. Just seeing people become friends, share what they're working on, post things that they've finished. It's just a sense of like, oh, we're all in this together. And I dig that.
Oh, that's so fascinating. And you said so many things that caught my attention. And
like what? Tell me.
Yes, along the line you were talking about sounds, and I look at that as one of the conditions. And for our listeners also listening, Steve is the founder and CEO of Sukha. the Sukha.co, so you want to check it out. They would help you find effortless productivity.
That's what we do.
Yeah. So you said sounds in terms of like, creating the conditions. That one of the things that I also noticed around what you were talking about was how association, the environment you find yourself can prime you for productive work. And I just want to ask, in terms of like creating the conditions, let's say I come to meet you, and for our listeners also listening, and they come to meet you and they say, "Oh, Steve, how can I enter into a state of flow?" In the sense that what kind of conditions do I need to create to get
Fantastic question. That is getting a great question. Okay. So here are a few things that you want to do. Number one, have something set aside that you need to do. You have to have a clear sense of like, here's a real thing I need to do that takes half an hour or more, like a real task, right? So you have that. And as we talked about, Mihaly said, you get into flow because you're doing something you think is meaningful. If you're paying the electric bill, you're probably not going to be in a state of flow, right?
Yes.
So choose a task. And the second is set aside time because we talked about it takes you at least 15 minutes, sometimes more to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get interrupted, it blows it again, right? So say, I'm going to take the next hour or two if you have it. Just say, here's this thing I want to accomplish. And I'm going to respect myself by setting a meeting with myself. Sacred time. I call it flow time in my calendar. I block out the morning 9 to 11. You can't book a meeting with me. I will not reply to your email in that time. That is the time when I actually do deep work, right? So number one, have something meaningful to do. Number two, set aside the time, half hour or more, to do it. And number three, block your distractions. And I'll tell you, you and I were laughing about the phone thing, right?
Yeah.
So we came up with that really easy thing. When you start your session, hit play and the QR code comes up, you can tap it on your phone. And then if you pick up your phone, your computer talks to you and says, is this helping? Here's the thing. One of my things you did not mention, one of my really bad distractions is I will watch a YouTube video that I may need to watch. Maybe it has some like explanation of how to use some component in React or something. You know what I mean? Like, here's the 3-minute video I need to watch. And at the end of that, YouTube says, "Oh, Steven, while you're here, here's some other videos you would love," right?
Absolutely.
Random stuff. Here's a video of like the A380 taking off and, here's a video of Michael Jordan highlights. Here's a video, whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, I love all that, or I was working recently on learning how to cook black cod, like sable fish.
Oh, interested.
And man, I'm telling you, like YouTube, whenever I use YouTube now, they're like, hey, do you want another fish cooking recipe? I'm like, oh man. So that would get me. That thing of just like, oh, hey, okay. So, I mean, for you, are there websites that distract you while you're working?
When I'm working, I tend to keep YouTube away.
Good.
And I just try to I use like the Pomodoro timer on my laptop.
Smart. Yep.
So that's what I use. And so I just try to make sure that when I set like 2 hours to do something really important, I just close all my tabs and I only have that thing open on the laptop.
Super smart. My hat is off to you. Okay. So I'm not as disciplined as you are, Kenny. Okay. So I needed help. And maybe some of our listeners also would like some help. You know what we did? We wrote a free Chrome extension where you can install it and say what websites distract you. You can toggle them on and off. If you open one of those while you're working and you leave it open for like 5 seconds, you get a little pop-up that says, hey man, is YouTube helping you? So, whatever. Is CNN helping you? Is so-and-so helping you?
I don't know.
It's like having a friend sit next to you, go like, Kenny, man, come on. If we're going to get done here, like, do you really need to open this website, And it's helped me a bunch. It also helps with feedback because I'll tell you this, with the Chrome extension, what we're launching now is the day after you do a session, we send you an email so you can look back at what you did. Here are the tasks you did and how long they took. Here's where you spent your time. Oh, you spent 40 minutes in Google Docs. You spent 10 minutes in, YouTube. You spent 3 minutes in Facebook. You spent 8 minutes in whatever else, right? And sometimes it's really helpful, like that Mihaly thing about you need to get feedback. You need to have some feedback. How am I doing? So that was just a free way. This Chrome extension we wrote has become popular because it's a free way just to say, hey, just tap me on the shoulder when I open a dumb website. If I'm opening crypto.com while I'm working, like, not a good thing.
Sure. Well,
So anyway, you asked about getting into flow. So those are some clear things. Have a task, set aside time, block distractions, and then fire it up. You choose some oral environment, music, coffee shop, rain, surf, stream, brown noise, white noise, pink noise, whatever you like.
That's so good. Thank you very much, Steven, for that. And I was going through your website and I saw there's like a productivity score whereby you can see your progress
Yes.
and use it to sharpen your habits. And I think that's where the feedback also come into play as well. So
I love that you spotted that. Yes. You know what we did is we made a little graph. It's blue. And then if you take your cursor, you can scroll your cursor through the graph, and every 5-minute chunk, it'll have a little pop-up that tells you, what did you do in those 5 minutes? What did you open? So your score goes up when you're, focused. If you open Facebook while you're working something, your score goes down. And you can kind of like scroll back and look and say, why did I lose all those points half an hour in? Oh, because I was on social media then, or I picked up my phone. Yeah, thank you for noticing that. Because again, we just want people to get feedback to say, like, how am I doing? Like, give me something.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's imagine now that I have something to do and probably I'm telling myself I don't have enough time to get it done. I know this is something that you talk about and you teach people on in regard to time management.
Yep.
Let's imagine someone is listening right now and is wondering, how do I manage my time? Can you tell us through some of the technique that you obviously use to help your clients become better at time management?
Yeah. And let's acknowledge that some really smart people have written about this. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is possible because people, like Clear, like Newport, like, AL have spent their lives researching this. So there are some commonly accepted principles that help. We talked about being organized. Why? Yeah, it's great to have a task list and jot things down. Why is that helpful? Because number one, you can prioritize it. When you have time to work, you can look at it and say, okay, of these things I captured, like these 3 are the ones that need to get done right now. So you pull them to the top of the list, right? So it's helpful to have that there. Second reason, you actually burn mental energy holding stuff in memory. If you have stuff in your short-term memory, like, oh, I need to get this done and that done, this done, these 7 things, yeah, it costs you brain energy holding that. And you can read about the Zeigarnik effect and sort of this sense of like, how can you get the things you're thinking down on paper or down into Google Tasks or Trello or Asana, whatever you use, so that you're not using energy holding them. You've released them to some other, like a second brain, as you would say. So that's a really important part of start by simply having a task list. You can prioritize. You don't have to burn energy remembering stuff, right? Second one we talked about, which is time blocking. Hey, you know what? I have an hour right now. I can actually do something meaningful in an hour. If you're trying to do something in like 15-minute chunks, it's going to be garbage because by the time you actually figure out, what you're doing and focus, you're on to your next Zoom call. You're on to your next, thing. So that's time blocking into your calendar, right? Here's another one. There is a law, Parkinson's law, that states tasks expand to fill the available time, right?
Absolutely.
So what is the counter measure to that? Is time box. When you start a task, you go, how long does this take, man? Maybe 30 minutes, and set a timer. Like in Sukha, when you put your time in, you say, oh, I need to, whatever, inbox 0. It should take me 30 minutes to get rid of all these emails, right? You can, as you work, see the little counter, see the little bar, progress bar, go across, and it'll hit the right side and turn red at 30 minutes. It is remarkable when you tell yourself, I have 15 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever, an hour to do this, the way you fit it in. And when you don't, it sprawls. It just keeps going, going, going. So these are some, 3 very simple, very actionable, free things you can do that yield results.
Absolutely. And time boxing, you just made me remember how I used to be like a partner in a business, and whenever we need to meet like our decks or presentation, and I tell myself probably like, oh, I just have like 2 hours left before submitting it, and I say I need to finish this within an hour. I end up finishing it within that hour. But because I delayed it, which is another phenomenon entirely, I've forgotten what it's called in science. But the Parkinson law shows that once I've set my mind to do something in an hour, I finish it in an hour. But whenever I have a task and I'm trying to do it, oh, I just want to do this thing, I never get it done because there's no time limit to it in the first place. So
yes. You want to know something else funny?
What's that?
So a number of people that have asked me, to help them, they talk about how they procrastinate. They're like, oh, I can't time box because, I just procrastinate and I never do it. I can't time block because, I just wait until the last minute. So here's the funny thing. When I hear that, I say to them, okay, so you can't time box right now. You can't say, oh, I have an hour. Let me do this hour task now. You'll wait until it's an hour from when it's due to do it. So I said, you can time box. You just insist on time boxing when the end of that is exactly the deadline. It's still time boxing. You call it whatever you want. It's time boxing because you go, it's due in an hour. I have to get it done. So you time boxed yourself with a gun to your head. I said, what if you did that same time box of an hour the day before and have less stress in your life?
Fascinating.
And people, once they realize that they are passively forcing themselves to time box, then they realize, oh yeah, I can do that. I just have to pretend that the deadline is today at noon, not tomorrow at noon, and they get it done. And then it's, it's like a mental hack. It's so funny the way our brains work, the way you can, trick our little brains into doing stuff.
I like to give my brain some traits. And I think James Clear spoke about that, how you have to, is it like cue with rewards or something in that line? Whereby whenever you want to do something, make sure there's a reward waiting for you.
Yeah, which is great.
Yes.
It's a great way to work. Yes, I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
Just talking about remote work, I know during the COVID, a lot of people started doing remote work. A lot of people went remotely. And during that period of the COVID crisis, people found it so difficult to do good work at all. And I know this is something you are constantly and consciously helping people to become better. But I just want to ask, for someone that might be working remotely, probably doesn't work remotely before, but it's working remotely and is finding it so tasky to just maintain that state of doing deep work, of focusing. What's really going on there? And I know the environment also plays a factor in it.
It does. You want to talk about that?
No, I want you to talk about that. Yes.
No, I will. Yes, let's talk about that. I'm going to tell you a funny story. So when I was, coming up, when I was new in film, I was working on the digital effects of Independence Day, right? I'd met the director and producer writer when they'd come off Stargate. And so I learned that they wrote their scripts down in Mexico. at this beautiful, I guess, white marble villa in the hills of Puerto Vallarta. It's like a vacation rental. And they would go down there to write. So when they had to write the next thing, Roland told his assistant, Joey, hey, go rent the villa for a month or two. She came back and she said, oh, it's already rented. And it was like this crisis around the office where it was like, oh my goodness, they need to go write, but the place is rented. Because it was like an Airbnb, like someone else rented it first, right? So Roland called his entertainment attorney. Okay, John Deemer is fantastic. And I said, John, buy the villa. John bought the villa. By Monday, Roland owned a villa in Puerto Vallarta, this $5 million marble place. And I, as this young kid out of Virginia, I was like, wow, what is this world where you just buy houses, you can go right in them? And I asked Dean about this once, and he said, the reason it's so important to us is there's a room there where in the morning the light comes in over the pool. And in that room, we never think about budgets or cast availabilities or, studio notes. We just write the movie that we'd want to go see. That's why it's worth it. And so now Roland owned, this villa. They went down and they came back 6 weeks later with the script that became the third highest grossing movie in film history at the time. It was very interesting to see. And this is not to say that you have to have a $5 million villa to focus, right? Because I'll tell you a funny thing is, years later, when I was a development executive at DreamWorks with Kurtzman Orsi, Alex Kurtz and Bob Orsi are writers who wrote Transformers 1 and 2, Star Trek 11, Mission Impossible 3, Zorro, The Island, like a whole bunch of stuff, right? And when they got in crunch time, we have to turn in Transformers 2 in 2 weeks, right? They would have their assistant rent a hotel room across the street. We were, DreamWorks was at the little Amblin compound on the Universal Studios lot in Hollywood. Across Lankershim, there's a Universal Hilton. They would rent a hotel room there. And I'm just going to say, it's not a luxury hotel. This is a kind of hotel where you stay there with your kids the night before you go on the rides, basically, right? And I thought to myself, they're making probably 1.2, 1.5 million per script. Like they could easily go to Bali for a couple weeks and like write in Bali. But they chose to go to this hotel across the street. And it hit me. They met when they were in school. And I think the hotel room with like Kurtzman on the edge of the bed on his MacBook and Bob at the desk on his MacBook, it evoked for them that sense of like dorm room of like, we're these scrappy young writers who have to prove, that we're this good. The pressure's on. We've got to deliver, right? And that was their mental way of associating the place with the pressure to get it done. The same way that Roland and Dean used that house in Puerto Vallarta to get them in the state. So when you talk about remote work and the challenges and all that, it is absolutely true that if you have a strong enough practice, you can do anything from almost anywhere. But it's also really helpful if you start to train your mind to say, oh, there's this place where I do this, and if you work at home, you have a laptop, you might say, oh, well, I could work in the kitchen in the morning and then go to my office in the midday and at the end of the day be on the sofa and, just move around your house. But it actually tricks your mind because your mind is never really sure, hey, are we in sofa watching TV mode? Are we in kitchen eating mode? It really helps if you say, oh, you know what? When I'm going to write my blog or I'm going to code or whatever, I'm going to be in this place. And then whenever you enter that place, you automatically start to tell your brain, oh, this is what we're doing here and what's what we're doing now,
So there's a correlation between a specific location and being productive while working remotely. Because
you can train your brain to say, in this faith, this is where I do this thing.
Yes, training my brain to know where we're. And you're welcome back to the Insight Zone. We've been having a wonderful time with Steven Puri, and it's been so good. And Steven has actually, expanded my mind a little bit, and I'm looking at nitty-gritty areas that I obviously need to get into flow in. And like I was saying, I didn't really know much about flow until I learned about it from Steven. Then I went down the rabbit hole and just started doing a lot of reading. And with what Steven has shared with us today, you definitely want to go check out his website, thesukha.co, and find out how you can help you if you're struggling with distractions and getting into effortless productivity. Is right here for you. And as we begin to round up, Steven, let me ask you, if someone wants to get into flow, not just in work, right, but in life in general, what is the first practical step you want them to take today?
You know what? Here's the first step I would take in general. This is even before you get into flow, which is each morning, before you open your phone, before you get busy making breakfast or running to the bus, think of the one thing that's going to move your life forward. What is that one thing today could move your life forward? And just make sure you do that. Because if you do that each day, it is astounding how your life changes. And it's very easy to get caught up and not. So that is my advice. Each morning, know the one thing.
Absolutely. Know the one thing you need to do and focus on the most important tasks that you have for each day. And thank you so much, Steven, for finding the time to
It was great being here. Thank you
to
for having me.
podcast. We're so delighted to have you. And we've come to the end of the episode today, and you've heard it all. If you find this episode so enlightening for you, please do share with your friends, your family, your neighbors, your colleagues at work. Help someone become more productive today. And from me, it's the same. Make it your mission to make someone's life better. And see you next time on the Inside Zone. Bye.